Every day, millions of ordinary people drive to work, to school, to appointments, and to spend time with their families, and in those routine moments, a simple traffic stop can unexpectedly become one of the most legally significant encounters of their lives. Understanding how traffic stop law works, what police officers are legally allowed to do, and what drivers are legally required to do is not about avoiding responsibility or escaping consequences. It is about being informed, protecting your rights, reducing stress, preventing misunderstandings, and ensuring that interactions between citizens and law enforcement remain safe, respectful, and legally sound for everyone involved. Knowledge of traffic stop law helps people stay calm, communicate clearly, and make lawful choices under pressure, which benefits both the driver and the officer. Before we begin, here is one important educational question for you to consider and answer in the comments. During a DUI or DWI stop, do you believe drivers are legally required to answer all questions asked by police, or do you think some questions are optional? To understand what happens during a DUI or DWI stop, it is essential to begin with the fundamental purpose of traffic law enforcement. Police officers conduct traffic stops to promote public safety, investigate possible violations, and ensure that drivers are operating vehicles in a lawful and responsible manner. In the case of DUI and DWI enforcement, the goal is to detect and deter impaired driving, which remains one of the most serious public safety concerns on roadways. While the mission is legitimate, the legal framework governing how stops occur, how questions are asked, and how evidence is gathered is structured to balance public safety with constitutional protections. In most legal systems, particularly within the United States, traffic stops are considered temporary detentions under the law. They are not arrests, but they do involve a limited seizure of a person under constitutional standards. This distinction is crucial because it determines what officers can do, how long they can detain someone, and what legal thresholds must be met before additional investigative steps can occur. Officers must have reasonable suspicion that a traffic law has been violated or that criminal activity may be occurring in order to initiate a stop. In DUI investigations, this suspicion often arises from observable driving behavior such as weaving, inconsistent speed, delayed braking, failure to maintain lane position, erratic turns, or equipment violations that lead to further investigation. Once a vehicle is stopped, the officer's first responsibility is to ensure safety. This includes positioning their patrol vehicle properly, observing the driver's movements, and approaching the vehicle cautiously. From the driver's perspective, pulling over safely, turning off the engine, keeping hands visible, and remaining calm establishes a cooperative tone that helps prevent misunderstandings. These simple actions are not admissions of guilt, nor do they waive any rights. They simply promote safety and clarity. At the initial contact, police can legally ask for certain documents. In nearly every jurisdiction, drivers are required to provide a valid driver's license, vehicle registration, and proof of insurance upon request. These are administrative requirements that accompany the privilege of driving. Failure to provide them can result in citations or further legal complications. Beyond these basic documents, however, the scope of mandatory compliance becomes more nuanced. Officers may also ask questions about where the driver is coming from, where they are going, whether they have consumed alcohol, or whether they have taken any substances. These questions are commonly used to assess impairment and gather observational evidence. While officers are permitted to ask such questions, drivers are not always legally required to answer them. In many jurisdictions, drivers retain the right to remain silent or provide limited responses. This does not mean being uncooperative or hostile. A calm, respectful statement such as choosing not to answer certain questions is typically sufficient. The key is understanding that conversational cooperation is different from legal obligation. One of the most misunderstood aspects of DUI stops involves field sobriety tests. These roadside tests, such as walking in a straight line, standing on one leg, or following an object with the eyes, are designed to help officers develop probable cause to make an arrest. In many states, participation in these tests is voluntary. Drivers may legally refuse to perform them without facing immediate criminal penalties, although refusal may influence the officer's decision-making process. Some jurisdictions impose administrative consequences for refusal, while others do not. Understanding local law is essential, as these rules vary widely. Breath testing introduces another complex area of law. Many states operate under implied consent laws, which mean that by driving on public roads, drivers are deemed to have consented to chemical testing if lawfully arrested for DUI. Refusal after arrest can result in license suspension and other administrative penalties. However, pre-arrest roadside breath tests are often considered optional. This distinction is critically important. A handheld breathalyzer used during a traffic stop may not carry the same legal obligations as a formal evidentiary breath test conducted after arrest. The consequences of refusal differ depending on timing, jurisdiction, and circumstances. Search and seizure law also plays a significant role in DUI stops. Under constitutional standards, officers may not search a vehicle without consent, probable cause, or a valid legal exception. Probable cause may arise from the smell of alcohol or drugs, visible open containers, admissions by the driver, or other observable indicators of impairment. If probable cause exists, officers may conduct a warrantless search of areas of the vehicle reasonably related to the suspected offense. Absent probable cause, officers may request consent to search. Consent must be voluntary, and drivers have the right to decline. Refusing consent is not an admission of wrongdoing and cannot legally be used as evidence of guilt. It is simply the exercise of a constitutional right. Understanding consent rules is essential because many searches occur not due to probable cause but due to voluntary consent. Officers may phrase requests in a way that sounds routine or expected, which can lead drivers to believe they have no choice. Phrases like, "Do you mind if I take a look?" or "Is it okay if I search your vehicle?" are legally significant. These are requests, not commands. Drivers may politely decline. Clear communication helps maintain mutual respect and prevents later legal disputes. Another important distinction is between detention and arrest. During a traffic stop, a driver is detained, not arrested. This means the officer may temporarily restrict movement for investigative purposes. However, the duration and scope of detention must be reasonable. Officers may not extend a stop beyond the time necessary to address the initial reason for the stop, unless additional reasonable suspicion develops. In DUI investigations, this means the officer may observe behavior, ask questions, and conduct limited tests to determine impairment. If probable cause arises, the situation escalates to arrest. Once arrested, additional legal protections apply. Miranda rights are another area that is frequently misunderstood. Miranda warnings are required when a person is subjected to custodial interrogation. During a typical traffic stop, drivers are not considered to be in custody for Miranda purposes. As a result, officers may ask questions without providing Miranda warnings. However, once a person is formally arrested and placed in custody, any interrogation must be preceded by Miranda warnings for statements to be admissible in court. This distinction often surprises people, but it reflects the legal framework governing temporary detention versus custodial arrest. Common mistakes during DUI stops often stem from nervousness, misunderstanding of legal obligations, or emotional reactions. Talking excessively, volunteering unnecessary information, making jokes about drinking, or attempting to explain circumstances in detail can unintentionally provide evidence that supports impairment. While honesty is important, brevity and clarity are equally important. Providing required documents, following lawful instructions, and responding politely while limiting unnecessary commentary is often the most prudent approach. Another frequent mistake involves attempting to argue roadside legal theories. Traffic stops are not the appropriate venue for legal debates. If a driver believes a stop or investigation is unlawful, the appropriate forum for addressing that concern is court. Remaining calm and compliant during the encounter while preserving legal rights is both safer and more effective than engaging in confrontational discussions at the roadside. Drivers also sometimes misunderstand the legal implications of refusal. Refusing certain tests may have administrative consequences, even if criminal charges do not result. License suspensions, fines, and reinstatement fees can follow. Understanding these consequences allows drivers to make informed decisions rather than reacting impulsively. Education, rather than fear or defiance, should guide these choices. State law variations play a significant role in DUI enforcement. Each state establishes its own standards for field sobriety tests, breath testing, refusal penalties, and administrative sanctions. Some states impose immediate license suspension for test refusal, while others impose delayed or lesser penalties. Some states criminalize refusal, while others treat it as a civil matter. These differences highlight the importance of localized legal education. General principles apply broadly, but precise rules depend on jurisdiction. Another area of legal complexity involves medical conditions, prescription medications, and lawful substances that may affect driving behavior. Officers are trained to observe signs of impairment, but those signs may sometimes overlap with symptoms of medical conditions such as diabetes, neurological disorders, or anxiety. Drivers should calmly communicate relevant medical information if appropriate, but should avoid speculative explanations. Clear, factual communication helps prevent misunderstandings. Vehicle searches based on probable cause also involve limitations. Officers may search areas of the vehicle where evidence related to the suspected offense may reasonably be found. This does not grant unlimited authority to dismantle or damage property. Scope and reasonableness remain governing principles. Understanding this helps drivers recognize lawful boundaries without escalating tensions. Detention duration is another legal safeguard. A traffic stop must not last longer than necessary to address the reason for the stop. Courts assess this based on the totality of circumstances. Routine license checks, warrant checks, and observation may extend the stop briefly. However, officers may not prolong a stop solely to wait for additional investigative tools unless new suspicion arises. Awareness of this principle reinforces the importance of lawful procedure. Professional reflection suggests that many DUI cases hinge not on dramatic evidence, but on small details: how questions were asked, whether consent was clear, whether procedures were followed, and whether rights were respected. This underscores the value of education for both drivers and officers. When both parties understand legal standards, interactions tend to be smoother, safer, and more productive. From a public safety perspective, DUI enforcement saves lives. Impaired driving remains a leading cause of serious injury and death. Respecting this mission while also respecting individual rights creates a balanced approach that strengthens trust in the justice system. Education plays a central role in achieving this balance. One of the most effective ways drivers can protect themselves legally is by remaining calm. Stress and anxiety impair judgment, leading to rushed decisions or statements that later prove problematic. Slow breathing, attentive listening, and deliberate responses foster clarity. Calmness also helps officers assess situations accurately, reducing unnecessary escalation. Another practical consideration is vehicle preparation. Ensuring that registration, insurance, and licensing documents are readily accessible prevents unnecessary delays and reduces tension. Simple preparation promotes smoother interactions and minimizes risk. Technology also plays an increasing role in traffic stops. Dash cameras, body cameras, and mobile devices create records that protect both drivers and officers. These tools enhance accountability and transparency. Understanding that interactions may be recorded encourages professionalism on both sides. For those who consume alcohol responsibly, planning transportation in advance is one of the most effective preventive measures. Designated drivers, ride-sharing services, and public transportation eliminate the legal and safety risks associated with impaired driving. Prevention remains the most reliable form of protection. In evaluating the broader social context, DUI enforcement reflects society's evolving understanding of public safety. Legal standards have become increasingly precise, emphasizing evidence-based methods and procedural fairness. Education helps citizens adapt to these changes and engage responsibly with the legal system. It is also important to recognize cultural and regional differences in enforcement styles. Some communities emphasize community policing and education, while others focus on strict enforcement. Understanding local norms can help drivers anticipate procedures and respond appropriately. In reflecting on the concept of tricks, it is more accurate to view many police tactics as investigative techniques designed to gather information. While some questioning strategies may feel indirect, their purpose is to establish clarity. Understanding these methods helps drivers recognize when they are being asked for voluntary information versus when they are legally required to comply. For example, casual conversation at the window may seem friendly, but it often serves an observational function. Tone of voice, clarity of speech, and responsiveness all provide data points. Awareness of this helps drivers remain composed and intentional in communication. Requests for consent to search similarly function as lawful investigative tools. Officers may seek voluntary cooperation to expedite investigations. Knowing that consent is optional allows drivers to make informed decisions without fear or misunderstanding. Field sobriety tests serve as standardized assessment tools, though their reliability varies. Understanding their purpose and limitations empowers drivers to weigh the potential consequences of participation or refusal. Chemical testing provides objective measurement, but also carries legal consequences. Knowledge of implied consent laws and procedural requirements is essential for informed decision-making. In the broader legal framework, courts continuously refine DUI jurisprudence through case law. Decisions clarify standards of suspicion, probable cause, testing procedures, and evidentiary admissibility. This dynamic process underscores the importance of staying informed. Education about traffic stop law should not be viewed as antagonistic to law enforcement. On the contrary, informed citizens and well-trained officers contribute to safer, more respectful encounters. Mutual understanding reduces conflict and enhances cooperation. From a professional standpoint, one of the most beneficial outcomes of legal education is confidence. Drivers who understand their rights and responsibilities approach traffic stops calmly, reducing fear and anxiety. Confidence promotes respectful communication and safer outcomes. Finally, it is worth emphasizing that the ultimate goal of DUI law is not punishment, but prevention. Laws exist to protect life, health, and property. Respecting these laws, understanding their application, and engaging responsibly with enforcement mechanisms benefit individuals and society alike. By learning the legal foundations of DUI stops, drivers become better equipped to navigate these encounters with clarity, composure, and respect. Education transforms uncertainty into understanding and fear into informed decision-making. That is the true value of knowing the law.